Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we are talking about D&D, mental health. Can Dungeons and Dragons help with mental health? The reason that I'm making this video is because an article came across my feed that was published on newatlas.com. It's titled Dungeons and Dragons Role for Better Mental Health. It was written by Paul McClure, and it was actually written July 17th, 2024. So as of the time that this video is being recorded, this was written just yesterday, or at least published yesterday. And I just want to cover this a little bit. I feel like there's some really interesting things in this article, so I'm just going to kind of read through some of it, and I also want to give my commentary on it. This is a little different from my usual types of videos. Usually I'm creating D&D tips, GM tips about how to run D&D games. And if you have a request or a question you'd like me to answer, please drop that in the comments. If you could also give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. I'm on my way to 5,000 subs and I'm creeping along, and it would help me so much if you give me that thumbs up and subscribe to help me along in the algorithm to help grow my channel. And then of course, I would love to hear your thoughts about this article. Drop me a comment. Let me know if you think Dungeons & Dragons can be beneficial to mental health. And if you've seen this in your life, I would love to hear from you awesome people, hear your perspectives on this. Please, let's keep the conversation going in the comments. And with that, we're going to jump into it. Now, I'm going to link to this article down in the description if you want to read it for yourself. But I'm just going to kind of read through some of this, okay? Playing the fantasy role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons with others has a positive impact on mental health, according to a new study. The researchers say that the game should be included as a therapeutic tool as part of a holistic approach to mental health. Now, that's interesting. Researchers say the game should be included, right? That's actually pretty strong language, but I'm going to keep reading. Maybe you've always been a Dungeons & Dragons fan, or you got into the fantasy tabletop role-playing game after watching the Stranger Things show or during a COVID-19 lockdown. Regardless, if you play D&D, the odds are that you have better mental health because of it, according to a new study. This is actually super interesting, and I feel that this is a true statement. In my observations of running D&D now for years, running TTRPGs for over 2 decades, I'm here to say that I believe that this is absolutely true. So let's continue. While some clinical psychologists are already using D&D in therapeutic settings, 2 researchers from the School of Applied Psychology at University College Cork in Ireland sought to understand how the game bolstered players' mental health. And then there's a quote here. This study found that D&D can bring a myriad of benefits for players, said Dr. Connor Linehan, the study's senior author. Although there are some clinicians and community groups that currently use role-playing games therapeutically, those groups are predominantly active in the United States. Our study suggests that a wider rolling out of such therapeutic role-playing groups may be of benefit in Ireland and across the globe, offering the great potential to support skills development, emotional exploration, problem solving, and foster meaningful social connection. So I'm going to stop right there for a second and just talk about this. I feel that this is super true. Personally, and I've talked about this on the channel before, I've worked through a lot of things. I've explored and looked inward at a lot of things in my own life about myself, about my emotions and feelings, about trauma from the past while playing D&D. This is especially true when I have run notable NPCs or notable villains. A lot of times I find that it's productive and helpful to kind of work through some of the darker things from my past when I roleplay villains. For example, a lot of times I will find a way to personify that villain to make it feel real to me. And then I can channel the anger. I could channel the hate. I could channel the resentment. I can channel the violence. These are feelings that in me, in my normal day-to-day human life, they don't really ever get a front seat. They're always kind of pushed back because I don't want to act hatefully toward other people. And I don't want to act resentfully. And these things are always we're always trying to keep the darker feelings at bay. But it's so therapeutic to role play a villain and to be allowed in a game setting to unleash some of those dark feelings and then to make them almost like a theatrical piece of art that others can enjoy. I would liken it almost to like songwriting, where you can write about your feelings, or writing poetry, except for the thing about D&D is that it's so much stronger than that because it's a shared intellectual art form that's created with groupthink. So it's like a group consciousness. And personally, for me, I feel that makes it so much more powerful. Okay. And I've talked about this in my channel to actually pretty decent extent, how D&D does have therapeutic benefits. I've seen it help people work through trauma. I've seen it help people work through identity crises. I've seen it help people work through, things they're going through in their life. I've literally seen players at my D&D games break down in tears sometimes at very meaningful role play. And I'm very grateful to have had these experiences. And I feel like when we think about D&D from this perspective, it gives us a clue into not only how we can make our games better for players, but also how we might be able to stick an extra thing into our games to really help bring some of that positive psychological and emotional benefit to the surface. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but I want to read a little bit more of this article. Prior research has shown that role-playing games or RPGs integrate 4 separate phenomena: roles, play, games, and media culture. The roles reflecting social reality or identity, and the fundamental play, a form of make-believe, provide RPGs with structure. According to the official website, D&D players form an adventuring party who explore fantasy worlds together as they embark on epic quests. Each player controls their own unique character, guided by one player in a facilitator or dungeon master role. In addition to choosing their character's class, race, and whether they're good or evil, players are encouraged to write a backstory for them and roll dice for their strengths and weaknesses. Now, this is where I think it really gets interesting. It's going to dive into kind of the actual study here. For the current study, the researchers recruited players from 3 countries. All were over 18 with at least 1 year's experience playing D&D frequently. That is, weekly or biweekly, and still playing frequently. 10 participants aged from their 20s to 50s were recruited. 6 men, 2 women, and 2 non-binary people. They were not asked whether they had any mental health diagnoses. Participants underwent semi-structured interviews in which they were asked how they discovered D&D, about their characters, and whether the game had impacted their lives. Participants who acted as DM were also asked about their experience of running the game. The participants' responses were then analyzed to identify key themes. The researchers identified 5 key themes and 2 sub-themes: escapism, self-exploration; creative expression, with a sub-theme of providing for others; social support, with a sub-theme of providing a safe space; and routine. So this is super interesting. I think that those 5 things and the sub-themes are super interesting. And this is where it leans into what can we provide for our players as GMs to make our games not only more connecting, more emotionally stimulating, but perhaps therapeutic and beneficial, right? So our research found that players discussed the benefits of escapism that accompanied playing D&D and the positive impact that this had on their mental health, said PhD researcher Orla Walsh, who led the study. Players reported feeling a strong sense of control in-game during times when they felt they did not have control outside of the game. Whilst many hobbies may allow for creative expression, D&D uniquely allows players to collaboratively build and inhabit worlds of their creation. That's exactly what I've been saying. And I think that that's why everyone who has played D&D seriously would say, this makes TTRPGs something a step above even video games, even like trading card games, board games, etc. It just takes things to a deeper level. It's almost like theater. It's almost like collectively writing a book, except for you're also role-playing it out and living it. It is such a deep experience. And I think that everyone who has played D&D or any TTRPG can attest to this. I really believe so. Do you believe you could attest to this? Drop a link in the comments. Let me know what you think. I believe that most people who've played TTRPGs would agree with this, and they would say, yes, I get it. Like, I understand. And people who have not played might not actually get it. They wouldn't understand it because it's hard to kind of explain it to them. Okay, now I'm going to just read a little bit more here. The social support nurtured by playing D&D gives players emotional and social connection and offers them a space in which they can express themselves freely, Walsh continued. While social support is a recognized benefit of many group activities, the collaborative storytelling aspects of D&D fosters a unique sense of camaraderie and shared experience among players. Yes, absolutely. It's like it's real. We will sit around and we will tell stories from D&D games. I'll sit with other people who play D&D and we'll share stories. I read them in the comments. While I don't always have time to respond to every comment, I read every single comment I get on my videos, and I listen to people's stories and I enjoy them. And you might think, well, Josh, it's silly. These are made up games. The people are sitting around the table making this up. But it's like, is it? Is it? I think that's too dismissive of the value of the shared experience, because is it not real to a point? If you all sat there and you all engage in this intellectual exercise And it was so real to you that it evoked real emotions, that it evoked real memories, memories that you can share for years later with the rest of your group. And then when you all get together, you're going to talk about that one time when the bards started the tavern on fire and then there was the dragon and all these things, right? These are very real experiences that you might be able to make a case that they're not as real as waking up and going to work, but they are real in the sense that they are actually things that overlap with many categorical phenomena that we would classify as being wholly physically real. As I said before, the memories, the evoked emotions, the control you have over the destiny, the shared narrative, the creative part of it, the fact that you're able to control your own destiny, right? These are all things that help to contribute to it and make it more real. So there's just a little bit more of this. I want to read it. The study's findings highlight the therapeutic potential of D&D, but it carries some challenges. For instance, while escapism can have recuperative functions, it may also serve as a form of avoidance, said researchers. Furthermore, players may bring sensitive topics into the game, potentially causing discomfort or triggering negative reactions in others. This is true. To mitigate these risks, a therapeutic DM should carefully curate storyline content and foster a supportive and inclusive environment. The researchers also point out that for all its benefits, D&D shouldn't replace other forms of support. It should be viewed as a complementary therapy that forms part of a holistic approach to mental health. One limitation to the study is that participants volunteered to speak to the researchers about D&D, so it can be assumed that they were passionate about the game and more likely to have derived a positive experience from it, which may not be representative of every player. And then further research is needed. Of course, there's always further research needed, which is not a bad thing. All right. So here's what I kind of draw from this as a conclusion. I don't feel like this is teaching me, and to be honest, this isn't probably teaching you anything that you haven't already understood about D&D. But for me, it does bring something to light. And the gold from this are those 5 categories of those 5 key themes with the 2 sub-themes: escapism, self-exploration, creative expression with the sub-theme of providing for others, social support with a sub-theme of providing a safe space, and routine. I firmly believe that when you look at these, it's really interesting, but these make up some very fundamental parts of what makes a D&D game good. Providing escapism. Well, of course. Let people play the class and race they want to play. Let people play the type of character they want to play, right? Self-exploration, obviously. Creative expression, obviously. With a sub-theme of providing for others. I kind of feel like that's a DM thing. Like, one of the reasons that GMs run games is because they love to provide that experience for players, which is kind of an interesting thing, but it's a needed thing. It's very necessary. There's also the social support, a community of friends, right? A positive community of friends. And there's routine. And the routine part is like we show up every Saturday or we show up every Thursday. We play for 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is, right? So it's like, to me, and I'm just going to kind of give my closing thoughts here. This is not a surprising thing to me. I believe that D&D is a therapeutic tool. And I think that as GMs, if we think about it in those terms, and we not only use that knowledge to try to make our games better, to really connect with players better, but if we also use that knowledge to say, hey, my game could maybe help someone. And this would really come into play where you are maybe asking players, maybe even outside of game, hey, tell me about your character. Tell me about your connection to your character. Like I might sit around with my players after the game and be like, so what about your character and you? Like, what are the similarities? Where's the overlap? If your character embodies some of your feelings, if you're, calling upon some of your personality traits, characteristics, past experiences to channel through this player, what are they? I feel like if, sometimes these things just happen. Sometimes players aren't going to want to talk about this, and that's okay. Sometimes, though, if you can get even a little bit of a clue as to the answer to some of those questions, then it can help you to show up in a way that will maybe sometimes challenge those things, maybe nurture those things, right? This is a delicate thing. You have to be a little careful. You don't want it to be like trying to back engineer what the player wants and then feeding it to them. I don't think that's the right approach. However, having an understanding and a respect for the arc they may be trying to have with that character, and then just taking care of the game experience, allowing them to have that arc, giving them the freedom to pursue that, with that understanding of it and then connecting with them when it happens, I believe that this can make D&D games not only powerful, but also very therapeutic and healing even. So anyway, there are my 2 cents on that. I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Please drop a comment and let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm here almost every day talking about my favorite game in the world, D&D, which I think is maybe the best game in the world. And I've got to give a shout out to Paul McClure, who wrote this. And once again, the link to this article is in the description if you'd like to check it out. So thank you so much. With that being said, I will see you, awesome people, on the next one.